The Cardinals 6-5 winners tonight over the San Francisco Giants. It's a late one here in St. Louis, but we are up. We are rolling, as did the Cardinals tonight over the San Fran Giants. I'm Ethan Hannaford. He is Brenden Schaeffer, and this is the Cards Central Postgame show on STL Sports Central. A reminder that all of our content here on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Brenden, as mentioned, 6-5 winners tonight. Weird ball game. A lot of different moments where you're like, okay, that happened, and then that happened, and at the end of the day, the Cardinals end up tallying another one in the win column.
Yeah, you'll take it. We were texting back and forth, and it really did kind of feel like a game between two teams that aren't terrible, but they're both not going to the playoffs this year. And it was just kind of a weird one. The Jordan Walker foul ball off the foot is not a reviewable play, so probably don't run to first base if it fouled off your foot. I guess it's just heat of the moment, Ethan, and Walker's thinking, hey, there's a runner on third, maybe a chance to score. It just went horribly awry. There were some moments in the game like that, as you mentioned, but ultimately the Cardinals able to get enough. Not a great outing from Michael McGrevy, gets you through 5, but the walks were harmful to him, gave up a couple of long balls, and just really kind of when you think about a pitching matchup involving Justin Verlander, you don't really think about a game being as ugly as this one was. And, he's had a pretty good year, but the Cardinals, to their credit, were able to get to him and Ivan Herrera, obviously the big swing of this game. But this was kind of a grind that it stalled out right after the starting pitchers left the game. You didn't have any scoring in the latter 4 innings, but I guess we can take that as a positive sign for the Cardinal bullpen, involving a number of guys that you're still trying to kind of find out what they are. Ryan Fernandez certainly goes into that category. I think John King as well is someone you're kind of monitoring for whether he will be included in 2026. But Leahy, Romero closing things out. Yeah, we're familiar with that, and I think that'll be a fixture as well in 2026.
Plenty to break down from tonight's ball game, and coming up here in a little bit, we will have our money moment of the game presented by Home Bank. So be sure to stay tuned in, and we'll be getting to that here a little bit later in the show. He's Brenden Schaeffer. I'm Ethan Hannaford, and this is the Cards Central Postgame Show on STL Sports Central. You can see this comment here from Mason Windu. Burley is now third in the NL batting race. He can't catch the first or second place, but that's still really good. And, you talk about the Cardinals not having that it factor guy necessarily in 2025. I wouldn't necessarily say that Alec Burleson is that, but the strides that he has taken over the last year and a half, most definitely worth a tip your cap. A guy that we had heard a lot about in the minor leagues, a guy that, hey, he has the pieces to be a good hitter, but he's also made a lot of adjustments to get to where he is right now, Brenden, and that is arguably one of the better hitters for contact, in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, batting average is sort of a lost art in the game nowadays, and we often talk about, and I'll talk about, the fact that there are more important things, but certainly when you're third in the league in a category as germane to the sport as batting average, it is still notable, and it's indicative of Alec Burleson, as you said, making some positive strides offensively this year. It's not just been his batting average that's up 24 points compared to last year, but the on-base percentage has increased. He's gone up in the slug department as well. May not end up with as many home runs as he had last year, but you also have had fewer plate appearances to this point, and he's already had a handful more doubles than he hit in 2024. So Alec Burleson, I think across the board, is really showing the Cardinals that he is a fixture moving into the future. And, maybe this was the year that we found out a little bit more about what he could be defensively in the outfield. That's been a role that he has served in for the majority of the season, but you're also seeing him get now with some of the guys on the injured list some time at first base. So wherever he ends up in the field, he's going to be somebody that I think will be in the middle of that lineup next year. A lefty with some power, but he's also a guy who doesn't strike out a bunch. And that's always been true of Burleson. I think it's why the Cardinals really were drawn to give him opportunities, even when things weren't necessarily going as well. And then last year, he really started to reward the patience of the organization and really show some of what he could do. But he tailed off pretty significantly at the end of last season, right? I'm looking at some of the numbers now. he entered September last year with a pretty solid 776 OPS, but then the month of September, not kind to him. He ended up with a 510 OPS for that final month of last season. So to see him finish the race the way that he is now, I think that's important in kind of establishing, what he can be for a full 6-month season next year. The Cardinals are certainly going to be counting on Alec Burleson.
You're around this team more than I think practically anyone here at STL Sports Central. What have you seen? What has been the big jump for him from last September, where he batted 202 in the month of September, to now batting 346? There was a lot of concern around if Alec Burleson would ever be able to be a guy that could put it together for a full season, and he has proven his ability to do that. Is it just sticking with the craft? Is it the plate discipline? What is there one specific thing? Is it culmination? What is it that has allowed for him to become such a complete player?
I think the plate discipline is something he always had, but the word you said, culmination, is maybe the best way to put it because, excuse me, there wasn't really doubt, I think, within the organization about Alec Burleson being able to put it together. But outside, we would look at the numbers and say, okay, 2023, he had a sub 700 OPS, played about, more than half of a year, really, was participant in 107 games that year, and was a sub 700 OPS guy who didn't really show a ton of power necessarily. He was on a pace for maybe 15 home runs that year if you played a full season. So you're like, all right, what is it about this guy that's going to allow him to take the next step? And then we did see, I think, strides from him last year, but just wasn't able to finish. And I think that's where the culmination comes. That's where it just comes with time and experience in the league. I think he came into this season with a really good mentality about what it was going to look like, kind of knowing that, maybe the role wasn't going to be automatic for him, at least at the beginning, but that he was going to get his opportunities. And I think that was probably, came from conversations with Ollie Marmol and just the staff of kind of understanding we've got some guys we're trying to cycle in here when it comes to the notion of runway or however you wanted to phrase it. But with Alec Burleson, I think there was a confidence from the coaching staff that they already knew what he was and would be and could be. And so that his time was going to come, regardless of, whether it was right away in the month of March and April or whether it took a little bit more time. His time was going to come, and there was a belief that he was going to sort of establish himself. He was another guy that I think was maybe harmed a little bit by, hey, Wilson Contreras has been a great Cardinal, but also the team might have been willing to trade him last offseason and figure out a way to get some other guys in there. Burleson would have been a primary first baseman, right? Arenado still sticking around this year was another. There's a trickle-down effect to that when you talk about, all right, who wasn't getting opportunities at third base, and now is that guy get a DH sometimes? That was Nolan Gorman for a while. And so I think with Burleson, they knew kind of what they were going to get out of him. They at least had faith in that. And this was maybe the first time that we were able to look at it and say, hey, he's getting the opportunity and he's putting it together exactly the way that the team, I think, internally always thought he would. And the part that just comes with experience is the ability to finish the race. On the pitching side, I kind of think about Matthew Liberatore, finally having a full season as a starter, making 30 starts and, being able to look back and say, all right, I did that. Now I've sort of established my baseline. This, I think, could be the year of Alec Burleson having established his baseline. And hopefully there's more great things to come from him, because when you have a guy that can, hit for some power, but his contact skill is so great, and that he's a guy that's probably never going to strike out 100 times in a year. If he continues to be the guy that we've seen him be so far in his career, it's a very rare skill to have in today's game, but he's got it. And that's something that I think when you pair all the other things that we're seeing from him, including the strides defensively, where they needed to find a way to get him in there, and corner outfield became more of an option for him, and the team could trust him with it because of the work that he put in behind the scenes to get there. So I think Alec Burleson's a great example as we kind of talk about what next year looks like and kind of worrying about, oh no, a rebuild is really going to be some lean times for the Cardinals. I think you've got some cornerstone pieces, and Burleson has really established himself this year as one of those. Of all the guys that could potentially be moved this offseason, he's one where I'd be shocked if he's not in that opening day lineup batting second, third, or fourth on the first game of 2026.
Another guy to talk about that didn't have the best of nights, but Michael McGrevy, as far as working towards solidifying himself, I think that that leeway will continue into 2026, especially when you consider the lack of numbers as far as starting pitching candidates as of right now. But overall, McGrevy tonight, a little bit of a disappointing outing. 5 innings, 6 hits allowed, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, and you break down the outing piece by piece, Brendan, and it felt a little bit like a tale of two stories for Michael McGrevy. He gives up the home run to Ramos to start off the game, but then he looks pretty sharp the next 3 innings, and then he runs into trouble once he gets around the 55 pitch mark in the 4th inning, and there was a lot of traffic at that point in the ball game for the Giants. Patrick Bailey contributes an RBI single. Ramos, the 2-run single to the right side. Devers, an inning later, the home run. And at the end of the day, not his sharpest start. You saw some pieces or some bits and pieces of it that looked good. But what did you take from McGrevy overall tonight?
Yeah, like I think I'm not going to overreact to anything I'm seeing at this point. Really, it's just about continuing to get him into that rhythm because he is going to be a member of that starting rotation next year. I was pretty confident all year, even as the Cardinals were continuing to trot out some veterans ahead of McGrevy, and he was getting some sparing opportunity. Like got in there at the beginning of May, was used occasionally from there. I always said he's going to get a dozen starts this year, and now he's up to 15 starts in 16 games. And he's gotten a really good feel for what it looks like to go through that routine as a big leaguer, to be pitching at home and then to go on a road trip and just like the doing it as a 24-year-old is really the experience that he's been able to gain. Now he's 25 years old, but I think that's just important because he's somebody that, as you mentioned, he's going to be in the rotation next year. And something I've looked at from him too is kind of doing some quick math on the fly. He's up over 166, 167 or so innings and makes one more start, would be 170 innings basically is where he's going to finish if you count the big leagues plus his AAA numbers. And that's great to see because the Cardinals are going to be looking for innings next year. I'm not going to say this in like a way people are going to take it as a derogatory thing. I don't mean it like that because I also think that what this guy ended up doing this year was more than passable for what the Cardinals were kind of looking for. But Miles Michaelis, he's going to depart in free agency this offseason, wherever he ends up. I don't think it'll be back here. Even on I don't think they're doing like the Wainwright thing where they give him a little bit of money and then incentives. I just think they're probably moving on from Michaelis. And so if that ends up being the case, I could see Michael McGrevy filling a role that Michaelis filled at least in his prime, which is 8 innings, like 180 plus innings, I think is a viable target next year for Michael McGrevy, a guy who pitches to contact. I think that's going to be sort of his role within this rotation where you think like, hey, a Palante can be a guy that does that, but he just hasn't been effective enough this year to feel as though he's going to be filling that role for the Cardinals in 2026. So McGrevy he's not penciled in. He's in ink. I mean, he's going to be in that starting rotation next year, and I'm excited to see over a 30 start span what he's able to do because this was kind of more than getting your feet wet, but he's going to continue to get opportunities, and I'm excited about him for next year.
Matt Z commenting here saying thoughts on Ollie not challenging the Walker hit off the foot. Brendan, do you want to explain the I guess the situation that even led to this question in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it was a play where in JC, I believe, was a runner on third base, and there's one out in the inning, and the Cardinals are threatening. It's a ground ball, but it's not really. It's a foul ball off Jordan Walker's foot, but it caroms directly toward kind of the left side of the infield to where he runs, which kind of allows everybody else to spring into action. But I think Sajasi probably saw it clean and saw that it was one that should have been ruled a foul ball. And so he's kind of like, I think he didn't make a great decision. Like Sajasi didn't make a great decision, but it was a weird situation. Not great instincts on that play. You'd like to see Sajasi have a little bit more of an awareness, but at the same time, it all did develop pretty quickly where it's like, okay, it looked like it hit his foot, but he's running. Should I be running? I'm supposed to be probably going on contact is the play. But the contact hit off of Jordan Walker's left foot. So what are we doing here? And he ends up getting, thrown out at home plate, kind of not like he's diving into home plate. It was just a very weird situation. He gets caught in a rundown and then they throw to second where Jordan Walker was trying to at least get to second base, kind of not trade places, but get into scoring position. And then he's thrown out. It was a very bizarre and very poor base running situation for sure. And that was mentioned that base running needs to be a focal point next year. Running into outs on the bases has nothing to do with talent. Cardinals top 5 in base running outs. The one thing I'll say about that stat is aggressiveness is something that Ollie Marmol has preached. But it's also kind of a notion of being aggressive and then kind of finding that line and then towing it more effectively. And you could make the case that maybe the Cardinals haven't quite ever gotten to the point of, all right, now we're effectively towing the line and we found it and we adhere to it. Because this was an example, I would think that Ethan and the commenters here would agree. It was just kind of like a little bit reckless and a little bit like lazy is not the right word. I just think their head was not in the moment of what was going on. In particular, like if you're Walker, I get trying to go ahead and take second base, but maybe you're thinking, okay, so JC's going to stay in the rundown longer, and that's going to allow me to go. It was just instinctually a play that I didn't love, and you'll probably look back and hopefully, coach the guys up. That's two young players involved, and so you're able to, in September 22nd in a season that's basically over anyway, and in a game that you won, so it didn't cost you, able to hopefully use it as a teaching moment. And I think Ollie Marmol is a really good teacher. I think his coaching staff has a lot of really good teachers of the game on this coaching staff, and it's going to, my expectation is be the same coaching staff next year. I don't think you're going to see a ton of change on that. You might see a little bit, but I don't anticipate there being a lot. It's just one of those that they need to continue to get that, kind of continuity of here's what we preach, here's what we need to execute. But as to the question of, why not challenge it? I do not believe it's a challengeable play. Correct. When you're talking about fair foul, ball off the foot, it's got to be noticed there. Now, if you're Ollie, and look, I didn't see the degree to which he was kind of trying to get the umpires together on it. It was kind of weird. It was an inning ender, and so the inning just ends. But, that is something that you can look from the dugout and say, hey, can you ask for help on that? Can somebody, but Jordan running is really what kind of tanks the whole thing. Yeah. It hit him in the foot. I get kind of just being in the moment, but you also have to kind of know how to play it from a gamesmanship perspective and say, look, that hit me in the foot. I'm going to kind of force an umpire to acknowledge what happened there. If he never leaves the box and kind of owns it and is like, yeah, I'm ready for the next pitch, I think that probably ends up having a different result. If nothing else, you have Ollie coming out to argue and say, look, the guy didn't leave the box. You can look at that. They'll do this, right? They'll look at the shoe and say, look, you can see this, the mark of the baseball on the guy's shoe, like that kind of stuff. As the umpires are kind of gathering to say, I don't know, did you see it? Did you see it? That could have resulted in the Cardinals' favor. But the extent to which that really happened as they go to commercial break, I honestly am not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's one of those where you trust the umpires to make the right play. And when I don't know, like you said, when you're not confident, okay, hey, this happened, then it kind of, it takes away some of that judgment, right? So it takes away some of that pressure also. If you're standing there, like you said, it probably creates a little bit of a different situation rather than running to first. So it was a little bit of a weird situation.
But if you're Jordan Walker, right, think about the season he's had, think about the youth that he carries. And you're like, I don't want to make a mistake of laziness or of not hustling. So I just want to kind of bring people in for folks who might turn around and say, well, that was just a boneheaded play. It sounds like you're calling Jordan Walker out for a boneheaded play. Not really, because I can't pretend to know exactly what would be going through my head in a moment like that in a major league game where I think it hit my foot. But also if I stand here like a nincompoop and they say I did hit it in fair play, how is that going to look? Are you able to process in that moment, reviewable, non-reviewable? A lot of times they just tell you, go through the play because we'll look at it later. That's the case for most things. It's be a hustler through the end of the play, and then we'll handle it how we need to handle it. But in that particular instance, you're not actually able to go back and look via replay. And there's an argument to be made that by running it out, it kind of costs the Cardinals the benefit of the doubt of, hey, you're able to do what you need to do there. Matt, I don't know why you're arguing. It's unless you can show me something, it's just not reviewable. You can't challenge it. You can't challenge fair foul on the infield. So you can say yes, it was all night, but show me something else other than yes, it was to tell me that I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll tip my cap. I always do. But yeah, there you go.
We're glad you're here, Matt. We appreciate you.
It's an interesting play. It was the most bizarre play of the game.
It was a play that summarized tonight up. It felt like pretty well. It was just a weird game overall. Game that the Cardinals were able to get a 6-5 win against the San Francisco Giants. He's Brenden Schaeffer. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This is Cards Central Postgame on STL Sports Central. And as always, it is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. St. Louis, Missouri. Get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. It is almost here, coming to the Show Me State. You can sign up today. New Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when we go live. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when we officially do go live, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app that is trusted by millions, safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live on December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bet expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Brenden Schaeffer, shall we just go ahead and jump into our home bank money moment of the game?
I think so, because I think we'll get an opportunity to talk about one power hitter who is going to be around next year, right? Ivan Herrera with the home run that he hit tonight, I think has got to be the answer for this, because the Cardinals were down 4-2 and they end up with the tying score. They get some kind of small ball to end up getting ahead on the Giants and Justin Verlander a little bit later on. But is that home run that kind of provided, I think, the proof of concept that the team was still in the game tonight?
That is our money moment of the game, and it is brought to you by our business banking partners at Home Bank. Cards Central Postgame show is brought to you by Home Bank. From business lending to everyday banking, Home Bank has been with us since day one as a trusted partner. Business isn't just about the numbers. It's about relationships. And with Home Bank, those relationships make the difference. Home Bank is the team behind our team here at STL Sports Central. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. That's 855-577-2001. Home Bank, member FDIC, more than a bank. They're your business partner. There you have it, our Home Bank money moment of the game of Ivan Herrera's 2-run bomb tonight that ended up at that point tying up the game at 108 miles per hour off the bat. And I think it's 412-foot bomb. Before we wrap here, the last thing I want to hear from you, Brenden, you talk about guys that have solidified themselves in this lineup for the 2026 season. And I think Ivan Herrera is as big of a name as is anyone. Herrera, now 18 home runs on the season, but I think more important than anything, 7 of those home runs coming in September. A lot of those had come prior to that second long stint on the injured list, and we saw the power dip off after that. He has found that again, and he has made some adjustments, similar to Burleson, right, in a different way, different adjustments, but he has made some adjustments to find that power, something the Cardinals lack a lot of and desperately need more of.
Yeah, like, I don't know that Ivan Herrera is necessarily going to be the, guy that OPS is 1,000 and is an MVP candidate like we thought earlier in the season. His numbers dictated that he might be that. But as you mentioned, tailed off. But the fact that he's going to end up finishing this season with a pace that's pretty close to pushing a 30 home run pace if he hadn't missed so much time, and an OPS above 800 is always like a calling card that I look for. Because if you find me a lineup full of guys that are OPSing 800, I'm going to win a whole heck of a lot of games. And he's another guy that really doesn't strike out a lot, Ethan. Like, in the modern game where we're so willing to kind of oftentimes look at power guys and say, oh, so they struck out 150, 170 times. Who cares? Like, as long as they get you their power, you're going to be happy. But this is another guy that I think could end up being a 25 to 30 home run guy and isn't going to do it by striking out much more than 100 times in a season. He struck out 80 times this year, coming into tonight anyway. And, a full season pace might be around 110. That's not a bad number by any means for a guy that provides the type of power that he ultimately does. So I feel like when you're looking at it and you put this up here with Uncle John, Herrera and Burley certainly are some for sure guys that are middle of the lineup guys. Mason Wynn's a for sure guy. He's going to be here. And he's going to be in that lineup and at shortstop every day. Where does he fit into the lineup? I think it's a big question of, all right, we're accepting the rebuild concept, right? Like, it's going to be a rebuild. But how many games do the Cardinals actually have to lose during that? Because there have been teams that think they're rebuilding, and really all that means is they're saving a lot of money on payroll and dumping the guys that are earning money. But if Mason Wynn takes the step that I believe he is capable of taking, instead of, piddling around with a 680 OPS or whatever it is, if he's 750, 760 and like 10% above league average as a hitter and is taking home the Gold Glove as a fielder at the most premium position in the sport, and can maybe hold down a leadoff role with a batting average in the high 200s, but potentially an on base it's instead of down more like 310, 320, if he's 330, 340, 350, If he can take that leap, guys, I think the Cardinals, that would be a huge step toward them not necessarily having to be this team that, yeah, they'll rebuild for 2 or 3 years, but they're going to win sooner than you expect if guys like that are able to take that step and come into their own. So those are 3 guys. Like, I still look at Victor Scott as a guy that I would be rolling out there every single day in center field next year, because I think defensively he's only going to continue to be on that Mason Wynn track toward a Gold Glove. And look, offensively, if it's a rebuild and you're kind of acknowledging that, you know what, maybe this isn't going to be our year to really sell out for it all, almost force feed Victor Scott as a leadoff man is something I'd be very curious to see next year. Give me a little Victor Scott. I'm trying to think if you want to go Herrera 2, Burleson 3. You know, that could be really interesting dynamic. And then Mason Wynn maybe is around that 6 spot. Or
AJ Weatherholt 4.
Well, and I think that might be a little bit much to ask of a rookie, but I like where your head's at. I like where your head's at. Like, and again, I'm thinking about the current version of these 2 guys, and you would say, well, really neither of them are appropriate at the top of the lineup. And you're saying, well, Brendan, what happened to Donnie and Newpar? You might be very afraid to find out about what's happening to Donnie and Newpar if you're a big Cardinals fan and a big fan of those 2 players, because if both of them are gone from the team next year, that's not going to surprise me one bit. I would be more than mildly surprised if both are here. I think certainly one gets traded, and I'm not an advocate of that, but it sounds like it's the way the Cardinals are going. So if you can find a way to see some of these other young guys that are well under team control, they're not into arbitration yet, and you're able to build a foundation from there and quickly get to a place where, like, with the young guys, you can win 75, 80 games, compel the front office and ownership to be able to add from there. Like, it could end up being interesting more earlier than some fans, I think, might believe. And so JC is another guy, like, look, didn't hit a ton this year, but has made strides. And can he turn into somebody that can be, you know, your Donovan utility guy if Donovan should happen to be traded? Like, the Cardinals have some pieces. They don't have that centerpiece fixture, but I'm looking at Herrera and I'm looking at Burleson. Those 2 guys replicating what they've been this year is a really good start. Mason Wynn elevating, Victor Scott elevating. There's a lot of other guys, Ethan, that we could talk about. Those are 4 guys, though, that I do believe are going to be here next year. And certainly, you know, as we kind of heard from Nolan Arenado yesterday in the clubhouse, it was kind of sad. It kind of had a sense of finality to it when we were both in that Cardinal clubhouse. But, like, it really does feel like a turning of the page. But that doesn't mean it has to be a situation where the Cardinals are bad for several years. Like, if the guys that want to take ownership of being the next leaders are able to do that, we could end up having some really interesting Cardinal baseball to talk about as the next couple of years unfold.
Here's the good thing. We have a long off season that is not far away, and we will have plenty of time to be discussing it right here on STL Sports Central. You know that Brendan and I will be here for plenty of those conversations, as well as all of the excellent talent that we have here at STL Sports Central. We are nearing Tuesday morning here in the Central Time in St. Louis, and on Tuesday, the Cardinals will battle it out in game number 2 of the series with the Giants. Andre Palante will head out on the mound. He'll face off against Logan Webb, who's having a solid season, 14-11, a 3.27 ERA, 211 strikeouts on the year as well. First pitch will be at 8:45 from Oracle Park in the Bay. That concludes our coverage of tonight's postgame. Hey, a congratulations to Matt's friend who picked the over. Won himself a couple $100 buckos. We love it.
Anybody else who had the faith in the Cardinals over 76.5 wins, you got there tonight. So congratulations to you. However many of you are out there. You did it.
He's Brenden Schaeffer. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This has been Cards Central Postgame on STL Sports Central. We'll see you tomorrow.